All right, well, when I was about in the middle of 6th grade, our teacher decided that it was time for us to take our future seriously. And she thought that we would best do this by writing a 5-paragraph essay on what we wanted to be when we grew up. Yeah. So, and I distinctly remember her saying, to inspire us, that we needed to embrace our ambition. Embrace our ambition. So I was 12, and at the time, my greatest ambition, now probably my sole ambition, was to get Kathy Canham to hold my hand while we walked home from school. And this really didn't lead to much of a career path. And so I was a bit stymied as to what to write about. And while my friends penned essays about being firefighters or astronauts or doing whatever their parents did for a living, I wrote nothing because I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. So a couple of weeks passed, and the assignment was due the next day, and I'd written nothing. And it was time to buckle down and get serious and get down to business. And so I did what every responsible 6th grade student would do in this situation. I went to a rock concert. And I didn't go to just a rock concert. I went to my first rock concert. February 9th, 1976. My buddy Bruce and I packed into Dahlberg Arena. 8,000 of our closest friends. The air was thick with anticipation. And a number of other things. And suddenly, the stage and everything just goes black, and this voice comes out of nowhere. You wanted the best and you got it. The hottest band in the land, KISS! And God, whoa. And this guitar chord just rips through the arena. The audience erupted. The stage exploded. The bass player comes out spitting fire and blood, and ladies' underwear blankets the stage. And there's this spectacle, and this thought occurs to me. You know, these guys have a good job. I like that job. I could do that. Doesn't look that hard. Yes, when I grow up, I want to be a rock star. So I went home, deeply inspired, and wrote my paper, citing loud music, fame, fortune, and of course, ladies' underwear as tools to embrace my ambition. And I turned that in, and about 3 days later, I got it back, and I received a solid D+, citing irresponsibility and an unrealistic vision, probably. I don't know if vision was in there, but it was unrealistic. And when I asked my teacher about it, she said that she wanted me to embrace, again, we were doing a lot of embracing in 6th grade. Unfortunately, I wasn't embracing Kathy Canham, but we were doing some embracing, and she wanted me to embrace a career that gave a little more back to society. And I was 12, and I thought, yeah, fat chance of that. And so 36 years later, I stand before you, a 4th grade teacher, and as I reflect on that experience, it wasn't the superfluous aspects of being a rock star, I think, that inspired me. It was the band. These 4 guys acting in unison, together, their sense of camaraderie, their oneness, their sense of each other. Each individual contributing to an entity greater than themselves. Individually, they weren't much. At best, they were mediocre musicians. But together they were KISS. And they collaborated. And they changed the way live music was performed forever and set a standard for live performance that still exists today. Now, as I reflect on our challenge for the 21st century as educators, I see a similar opportunity and some similar challenges. We have this opportunity to change education for our students forever, but we're limited. We're limited by fear, and we're limited by isolation. We teach in isolation, we teach our subjects in isolation, and our schools generally operate in isolation. We're afraid. We're afraid that our AYP scores aren't going to come in. We're afraid that our DIBEL scores are going to drop. And we're afraid that we're going to fall behind in our pacing guide. Well, we need to shift this paradigm. We need to move from fear and isolation over to hope and collaboration. We need to break the chains of standardized testing and open up our minds and our hearts to the curiosity that exists within our children to create more enriching, more lifelong experiences for our students. And in order to do that, we need to become a community. Individually, operating in isolation and fear, we're condemned to mediocrity. But together, we can make changes that will enhance our children's future forever. Now, I know that sounds lofty, but there is a framework that exists for this. When my wife and I taught in Germany about 10 years ago, we were introduced to a curricular framework that liberated teachers from outcome-based education and compelled them to collaborate toward a more process-based, inquiry-focused education experience for kids. As we looked at these classrooms, and we went and observed initially, the level of engagement of the students skyrocketed. There were these untold opportunities for what am I trying to say? Untold opportunities for student-driven action and reflection, and the creative arts were fused into the core curriculum. But the magic that came from it was the sense of community in the school, the camaraderie. The entire school, the students, the staff, the administration, the people that sent their kids there, all working together toward one big idea. Let's create the best education we can for our children. So what was the framework that they used? Well, it was known as the International Baccalaureate Primary Years Program. And I could spend weeks trying to tell you about all the layers and how it works together, but I'm going to give you a real quick breakdown of what it is. It's 5 essential curricular elements: knowledge, concepts, attitudes, skills, and action that synthesize to create transdisciplinary, inquiry-based explorations for children. And it's all fueled by a common language known as the learner profile. Okay? It forces teachers to collaborate. It forces teachers to think outside the box, sometimes create their own box, infuse students' inquiry, and create lessons and experiences that are relevant, enriching, and will last their students a lifetime. And so, together with the learner profile, it creates the most comprehensive curricular web I've ever experienced. And just as seeing KISS perform when I was 12 changed my perspective of what live music should be like, my 5 years teaching in a PYP school changed my perspective of what effective education looks like. If we're going to walk into the future with our children, we need to maintain and implement a vision that will allow them to face the challenges that are out there. The Primary Years program is that path that will take them there. Inquiry is inevitable. We need to embrace, once again embracing, we need to embrace creativity and collaboration. So I encourage you, go to the website that has this. It's called the ibo.org website. It's real simple, ibo.org. Open up the website. Open up your mind. Think about possibility. And ask that greatest question of all. What if? Because if 4 guys from New York, 4 guys, can change live performance forever, just imagine what all of us can do together.